No one ever questioned why Ayan always seemed to be near Ryan. In a world full of loud friendships and obvious bonds, theirs looked simple, natural, even expected. Two boys who grew up together. Two names often spoken in the same breath. Two lives moving side by side. People called it brotherhood. Ayan called it survival. Every morning, he arrived early just to claim the seat beside Ryan. Not because he needed it, but because being close made the day easier to breathe through. Ryan talked endlessly about classes, future plans, meaningless jokes, and Ayan listened as if each word was precious. He memorized the sound of Ryan's laugh, the way his eyes softened when he smiled, the slight crease on his forehead when he was worried. Ayan never reached for him. Never crossed a line. Love, for him, lived quietly hidden behind loyalty and restraint. He told himself it was enough. Sometimes, when Ryan leaned too close or rested his arm across Ayan's shoulders, Ayan felt his chest tighten. His heart would race, but his face stayed calm. He had trained himself well. Years of silence had taught him control. Feelings were dangerous things, especially the kind that could ruin everything if exposed. So he buried them. What Ayan didn't realize was that silence has a way of echoing in places you never expect. Across the room, often unnoticed, Sarah watched him. She noticed how Ayan's smile never fully reached his eyes unless Ryan was near. She noticed how he grew distant whenever someone joked about relationships or love. She noticed how he always chose to sit slightly turned toward Ryan, as if the rest of the world didn't matter. And every time she noticed, something inside her cracked just a little more. Sarah had known Ayan long enough to recognize when someone was hiding pain. She had seen it in herself, after all. Her love for Ayan wasn't loud either. It wasn't dramatic or demanding. It was quiet, patient, aching. The kind of love that waits and hopes and slowly learns how to break without making a sound. She wanted to tell him. God, she wanted to. But how do you confess love to someone who is already emotionally somewhere else? At lunch, the three of them often sat together. Ryan talked. Ayan smiled. Sarah listened. Sometimes Sarah tried to pull Ayan into her world, asking him questions, sharing stories, laughing a little too hard at his jokes. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes, for a brief moment, she felt seen. But then Ryan would say something, just one sentence, and Ayan's attention would drift back like a magnet finding its north. Sarah learned not to be angry at Ryan. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He didn't know. That was the cruelest part of it all. Ayan believed his silence kept everyone safe. Sarah believed her patience would one day be rewarded. Ryan believed nothing was wrong at all. In the evenings, Ayan walked home replaying conversations in his head. Every word Ryan said felt heavier once the day was over. He wondered if anyone could see through him, if anyone could sense the truth he carried like a weight in his chest. Sometimes, in the privacy of his room, he allowed himself to imagine impossible things, confessions that never happened, conversations that would never exist. Then guilt would wash over him, and he would shut those thoughts away like a crime. Across the city, Sarah sat on her bed staring at her phone. Ayan's name glowed on the screen. She typed a message. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. I miss you. You matter to me. Do you ever notice me the way I notice you? None of the words survived. She wondered if love was always supposed to hurt this much. She wondered if she was invisible or simply too late. And Ryan, unaware, unguarded, walked through his life believing he was surrounded by people who told him everything that mattered. He didn't know that two hearts near him were quietly breaking for completely different reasons. In that unspoken triangle of emotions, silence ruled. And silence, though gentle at first, was already sharpening its edges. Because love left unspoken doesn't disappear. It waits. It grows heavier. And eventually, It demands to be heard. By the time the second semester began, silence had learned how to live comfortably between them. Ayan noticed it first in the smallest ways: how his chest felt tighter when Ryan talked about the future, how laughter didn't come as easily anymore. Ryan spoke excitedly about plans after graduation, about places he wanted to go, people he wanted to meet. Ayan listened, nodding, smiling when expected, while a quiet fear grew inside him. There was no space for him in those dreams. At least, not in the way he wished. So Ayan did what he always did when fear threatened to surface: he stayed quiet. He turned love into loyalty, longing into presence. He convinced himself that being there was enough. That loving someone silently was better than losing them completely. But silence has a cost. Sarah felt it too. She felt it in the way Ayan grew distant during conversations, his thoughts always somewhere else. She felt it in how he never asked about her dreams the way she asked about his. She told herself she was imagining it, that love makes you sensitive, that patience would eventually soften him. Yet every day, patience felt heavier. One afternoon, rain trapped them inside the campus cafe. The windows fogged up, the air thick with quiet conversations and the smell of coffee. Ryan had stepped away to take a call, leaving Ayan and Sarah alone at the table. This was it, Sarah thought. If not now, then when? She watched Ayan stir his drink without drinking it, his eyes fixed on nothing in particular. He looked tired. Worn in a way that made her chest ache. "You've been quiet lately," she said softly. Ayan blinked, pulled back into the moment. "Have I?" "Yes." She hesitated, then continued. "You don't have to carry everything alone." The words hung between them, fragile and hopeful. For a moment, just a moment, Ayan almost spoke. He felt it rise in his chest, pressing against his ribs, begging to be released. But then he thought of Ryan. Of the consequences. Of how easily everything could fall apart. "I'm fine," he said finally. "Just thinking too much." Sarah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She had heard those words before. Everyone who was breaking said the same thing. When Ryan returned, the moment dissolved like mist. The walls went back up. The silence reclaimed its place. That night, Ayan lay awake staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed with messages from Ryan, jokes, random thoughts, voice notes filled with laughter. Ayan replied quickly, carefully. Never too much. Never too little. Then his phone buzzed again. "Sarah. Are you really okay?" Ayan stared at the message longer than he should have. He typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. "I don't know how to explain what I feel." Delete. "Sometimes I'm afraid of myself." Delete. In the end, he sent the safest lie of all. "Yeah. I'm okay. Don't worry." Across the room, Sarah read the message and felt something inside her give way. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet collapse of hope she had been holding onto for too long. She turned her phone face down and let the tears come, silent, controlled, practiced. She cried not because Ayan didn't love her, but because she was beginning to realize he might never be able to. The next day, Ryan joked about how serious everyone had become. He teased Ayan for overthinking, threw an arm around his shoulders like it meant nothing. Ayan froze for half a second before forcing himself to relax. Sarah noticed. She always noticed. Love had turned her into a careful observer of pain. Ryan leaned in close and whispered, "You know you can tell me anything, right?" Ayan's heart slammed against his ribs. He nodded. "I know. But knowing and doing were two very different things. Because if he told the truth, he would lose the one person he couldn't imagine life without. And if he stayed silent, he would keep hurting someone who had never done anything but love him. So Ayan chose the middle ground, a place where honesty never quite reached the surface. The place where hearts slowly cracked without anyone seeing the damage. And somewhere deep inside, all three of them began to feel it. Silence was no longer protecting them. It was slowly tearing them apart. The truth, Ayan had learned, had a way of finding cracks in even the strongest walls. It began that Saturday afternoon, in the quiet of the park where the three of them often met. The sun hung low, painting everything in gold, and the air smelled of wet grass and early autumn leaves. Ryan was sprawled on the bench, scrolling through his phone, while Ayan and Sarah sat on the grass nearby. The world felt peaceful, almost fragile, the kind of peace that always precedes a storm. Ryan had been unusually talkative that day, laughing louder than usual, sharing stories from school, joking about people they both knew. Ayan smiled along, but inside, he felt a knot tightening. He wanted to tell Ryan, to finally speak the words he had carried for years, but the moment never felt right. And somehow, the words always seemed too heavy for the light, sunlit afternoon. Sarah watched Ayan from the corner of her eye. She noticed how his shoulders tensed whenever Ryan leaned in, how his smile faltered slightly when Ryan laughed at something she hadn't said. She wanted to say something, to grab his attention, to pull him into her world, but she didn't. She knew the wrong words could shatter more than the silence ever had. And then it happened. Ryan leaned closer to Ayan, resting his arm across his shoulders like he did sometimes, and with a mischievous smile, he said, "You know, sometimes I feel like you like me more than you admit." Ayan froze. His heart slammed against his chest, and the blood rushed to his head. He wanted to laugh it off. He wanted to brush it away with a joke. But something in Ryan's tone, the gentleness, the curiosity, the lack of judgment, made him tremble. I don't," Ayan started, then stopped. Words caught in his throat like stones. He wanted to tell him everything. "I love you. I have for years. I'm terrified. I can't live without you, but I can't tell you either." Ryan tilted his head, studying him. "Ayan, you can tell me, you know. I won't judge you." The air thickened. Sarah, sitting a few feet away, noticed the sudden change, the way Ayan's hands clenched into fists, the slight quiver in his voice, the sudden redness in his face. She felt a pang in her chest, one she had been preparing for but hoped would never come. Ayan shook his head quickly. "It's nothing. It's just. I don't know. Forget it." Ryan frowned slightly, concern flickering in his eyes. "You don't have to hide it from me. I've known you for years." Ayan swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice. "I know. I just..." He didn't finish. Because the truth, when it finally escapes, doesn't always arrive in the words you expect. It comes in pauses, in hesitations, in a look too long or too loaded. Sarah had been holding her breath, unsure if she wanted to intervene or disappear completely. And when she finally spoke, it was barely audible. You could have told me too, you know." Ayan's head snapped toward her. Her voice soft, trembling, cut through him like a blade. He saw the tears welling in her eyes, the hurt she had carried silently, and his chest tightened until it hurt to breathe. I didn't," he stammered. "I didn't know." "You didn't notice," she whispered. "You never noticed. You never saw me." Ryan, still on the bench, watched quietly, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. He wasn't angry, didn't look shocked. He simply observed, a quiet understanding in his eyes, a patience Ayan both feared and needed. Ayan's silence finally broke. Not into confessions, not into declarations of love, but into something heavier: regret, guilt, longing, all tangled together. I. "I'm so sorry," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you. I didn't realize." Sarah shook her head, blinking back tears. "It's not about realizing, Ayan. It's about noticing. You loved someone else. And I loved you. And we both stayed quiet. The weight of the unspoken words hung over them, thick and suffocating. For the first time, Ayan saw the cost of his silence, not just to himself, but to Sarah, to the love that had waited patiently for years. Ryan finally spoke, his voice soft but steady. I didn't know, Ayan. And I'm glad you're honest now, even if it's late. Ayan felt the sting of tears in his eyes. The truth had come out, but it didn't bring relief. It brought clarity. And clarity was painful. For the first time, all three of them understood the depth of what had been left unsaid. Silence had protected them for years, yes, but it had also built walls higher than any of them could climb alone. And now, those walls had cracks. And through those cracks, the pain of love unspoken, unshared, unfulfilled was finally visible. After that afternoon in the park, everything changed. Not with grand gestures, not with shouting or arguments, but quietly, almost imperceptibly, their world began to shift. Ayan felt it first in the small silences that stretched between him and Ryan. The casual touches, the shared jokes, the easy laughter all seemed to have thinned, replaced by careful words and measured movements. Ryan needed space, and Ayan, for the first time, realized he had nothing to hold onto. He hadn't expected this. He had thought that honesty, finally spilling the weight he had carried for years, would bring relief, maybe even closeness. Instead, it had created distance. Ryan wasn't angry, but there was a quiet tension, a subtle hesitation in the way he moved, the way he spoke. He seemed to be testing the waters of a friendship that had never had boundaries, a friendship now suddenly fragile. Ayan felt exposed, raw, and ashamed. Every unspoken word, every feeling buried for so long, now screamed in his chest, making it impossible to breathe normally. He longed to reach out, to touch Ryan, to tell him everything again, but even he knew it was too late. And then there was Sarah. She retreated quietly into her own shell, the walls she had built over the years now reinforced by the heartbreak of unreciprocated love. She smiled when they met, but the smiles were thinner, the laughter quieter. Every glance she gave Ayan was measured, careful, as if afraid that any sudden movement would crack the fragile mask she wore. Ayan watched her distance grow, and with every step she took away, he felt the weight of regret settle heavier on his shoulders. He wanted to reach her, to explain, to beg forgiveness, but the words died in his throat. He was too weak. Too cowardly. Too consumed by his own pain. School became a minefield. Cafeteria tables that once held the comfort of shared presence now felt like traps. Every laugh, every joke, every casual conversation seemed loaded with memories of what they had lost. Ryan started spending more time away, sometimes disappearing for hours without explanation. Ayan would sit alone, staring at the empty bench where Ryan had just been, wishing he could rewind time, wishing he could be brave enough to speak before everything broke. Sarah stopped trying to engage him in conversation. She stopped sitting near him, stopped watching, stopped hoping. She kept her distance, her heartbreak contained behind a polite exterior. But Ayan could feel it. He could sense the absence, the quiet, the subtle grief in the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching. One evening, Ayan found himself walking home alone, the streets damp from rain, the city lights reflecting in puddles like broken pieces of glass. He thought of Ryan, of Sarah, of all the moments they had shared, and he realized the devastating truth: by staying silent for so long, he had lost both of them, not to someone else, not to fate, but to his own fear. The silence that had once felt safe had turned into a prison. He remembered the afternoons spent in the park, the nights lying awake with unsent messages, the words he had deleted over and over. Every moment he had chosen restraint over honesty had led him here, to a place where love existed in memory only, unspoken and unfulfilled. Sarah's face haunted him, her gentle eyes, the way she had tried to bridge the gap, her quiet strength in the face of heartbreak. And Ryan, who had never asked for anything, who had only wanted friendship, now seemed further away than ever, lost in his own thoughts and distance. Ayan began to understand the true cost of silence. It wasn't relief, or protection, or nobility, it was loneliness, guilt, and loss. And now that the damage was done, there was no way to reverse it. Sometimes, he would catch glimpses of them, Ryan laughing with someone else, Sarah talking softly with another friend, and a strange ache would rise in his chest, sharper than any physical pain. He realized that he didn't just love silently, he had loved carelessly, by choosing inaction over risk, by letting fear dictate his choices. And the cruelest irony of all, in trying to protect them, he had only hurt them more. Ayan knew one thing for certain. The silence that had once kept him safe had ended in heartbreak, not just for him, but for everyone he loved. He couldn't fix it, couldn't rewind, couldn't reclaim what had been lost. All he could do was watch, and remember, and carry the weight of his choices as he walked through the empty spaces between them. By the time winter came, the closeness that had once defined their trio was gone. They were no longer three hearts entwined in quiet connection. They were three individuals, each carrying the ghosts of love unspoken, each learning painfully that sometimes the hardest part of love is knowing when silence destroys everything you hold dear. Winter had settled over the city, coating streets and rooftops with a cold quiet that mirrored the emptiness in Ayan's chest. The trio that had once been inseparable was now fractured, each carrying invisible scars from the love and silence that had defined them. Time had passed, but it had done little to erase the memories. Instead, it had sharpened them, making the absence of connection more painful, more real. Ayan walked through familiar streets, passing the park where they had once laughed together. The benches were empty, the grass dormant, and even the sunlight felt muted. He remembered that fateful afternoon when truth had slipped out, when Sarah's quiet heartbreak and Ryan's gentle confusion had collided with his own silence. That moment had changed everything. He hadn't ended up with either of them. Not Ryan, not Sarah. And yet, neither was gone from his life entirely. They lingered in memory, in the ache of what could have been, in the lessons that only heartbreak can teach. Ryan returned one afternoon, unexpectedly. Not as the boy who had once shared every thought and every laugh, but as someone tempered by distance, careful and kind. He didn't ask for explanations or apologies. He simply sat beside Ayan, offering a quiet companionship that spoke volumes without words. I didn't realize, Ayan began, unsure how to voice the weight he had carried for so long. I never meant to hurt anyone. Ryan shook his head gently. I know. And I understand more now. We were all navigating our own silences. It was strange, this understanding. There was no rekindling, no romantic closure. Just a calm acknowledgement that some bonds remain, even when altered by time and choices. Sarah came into his life again too. This time, there was honesty without expectation, presence without demand. She didn't hide her past hurt, nor did Ayan try to erase it. They spoke openly, finally letting words carry the weight that silence once held. I loved you quietly too, she said one evening, her voice steady but soft. And it hurt, more than I can describe. Ayan listened, the ache in his chest easing slightly. I know. And I'm sorry I never saw it sooner. Her eyes softened. We can't change the past. But, we can move forward. Separately, maybe. But with understanding. And that was the lesson Ayan learned, love doesn't always come with closure or fulfillment. Sometimes, it teaches through absence, through what is lost, and through the quiet ache of hearts left waiting. In the following months, the trio found new rhythms. They no longer shared the carefree intimacy of the past, but there was a tentative peace. Moments of laughter returned, carefully measured, respectful of old wounds. Conversations flowed without fear, but without expectation. Each had learned to carry love with grace, even when it wasn't returned in the way they had hoped. Ayan often thought about the irony of silence. For years, he had believed it was a shield, a protective layer to guard against pain. In reality, it had been a slow poison, corroding connections and delaying understanding. Yet even in its wake, there was growth. He had learned courage, not the courage to speak perfectly, but the courage to face the consequences of truth. Sarah and Ryan taught him the subtle strength of love that doesn't demand, of patience that knows its limits, and of the quiet resilience required to heal. Ayan never forgot them. He carried pieces of each in his heart, the laughter, the tears, the whispered moments of what could have been. And while he did not walk with them as lovers, he walked with them as witnesses to the lessons of his youth, that love, when unspoken, does not vanish, it transforms. By the end of winter, the snow melted into early spring. Life moved on, as it always does, carrying the trio forward along separate paths, yet bound by shared memory and understanding. Ayan, walking through the new season, realized that healing does not mean forgetting. It does not mean erasing the past. It means acknowledging it, learning from it, and carrying its truths quietly but boldly into the future. He had loved silently, and he had hurt silently. Sarah had loved silently, and she had survived. Ryan had understood silently, and he had forgiven. And though their hearts now moved along different trajectories, the love they had shared in all its complexity, all its pain, remained a permanent part of them. Some loves never stay. Some loves never fade. Some simply teach us how to live better, even when they leave us behind. Ayan smiled softly to himself as he walked through the morning streets, the chill in the air sharp but bearable. He knew one thing for certain: love spoken, love felt, love endured, it is never wasted. It only changes the way we see the world, and the way we see ourselves. And for Ayan, for Sarah, for Ryan, that change, though born of heartbreak, was enough.